Hey, it's Rich, the Louisiana Hobby Guy. Today we're going to be doing an upgrade to the Monport K40. We're going to gut the machine, we're going to take out the fan, we're going to add air assist, we're going to change the laser head, and all of that's coming up right now. So stay right there. We're about to get started. Alright, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the back of the machine. I'm going to take out the 4 outer screws from here on the outside of this fan, and we're going to remove this fan completely because I guess a lot of people don't realize it. They put an exhaust hose on here, they put an inline fan, and vent it out the window, but they don't realize that this is a huge restriction to the air that's being sucked out of the K40. What we want to do is remove this fan completely. The first thing I'm going to do is take out the 4 screws, and the second thing I'm going to do is remove that fan completely. Now that's not a bad fan. It's 3100 RPMs. It's a great computer fan if you want to use it for something else. I'm definitely not going to use it on my CO2 laser. So now we've got that fan taken out, we've got the obstruction out of the way, and we're going to get a lot more CFM pull out of the exhaust fan. The second thing I have to do is find out where the wires go, and it's going to be the only 2 black wires, I hope, on everybody's, that come from the fan inside the case. And I just cut these wires close to the fan. I might want to use these for something else in the future and put some wing nuts on them. So now the next thing I want to do is inside the fan bay, these 4 bolts hold on the little shroud on the inside of the laser. I should say screws. So we want to remove these 4 screws from the back side of the laser. Once those screws are removed, you have to get the bottom of it up over the bed and then tilt the top back so that it can be pivoted out with one hand holding the camera. This was really hard to do. There we go. And we just pivot that out, and now that's out of the way, exposing the bed. So the next thing we're going to do here is, now that we have this exposed, we're going to remove the 2 screws in the back, and we're going to remove all 3 of these screws in the front. And once we do that, it'll expose the standoffs. So let's move the laser out of the way. I took all 5 of the screws out. I know it's kind of hard to see because this has got a lot of soot on it, but there's all 5 of them. Then the bed just simply lifts out and out of the way, and now you can see the standoffs below. These standoffs were very easy to take out. All you have to do is lift up the laser, hold the nut on the bottom, and unscrew them by hand. So now you can see I've actually removed all of those standoffs that were under there. All I did was put a block of wood underneath the laser. I reached under with my finger, grabbed the screw. None of these were tight. And I just unscrewed the standoffs. So while we're here, let's go ahead and take these 2 screws out on either side of this plate right here and take off this cover plate just temporarily for 1 minute. And we're going to go ahead and check these grub screws here. 7 of these were tight, 1 was loose. So I went ahead, there are 8 grub screws total. I went ahead and tightened that up and made sure all of the other ones were tight as well. And just as 7 is going to be enough to hold it forever, but I just did that for safety's sake. And then I went ahead and put the cover back on. You can see I've dropped in my scissor jack here, and we're taking a look, and we're about 2 3/4 of an inch to the lens. Now the lens is probably closer to 3 inches. The lens is right at the very top of that bottom piece there, but let's say 2 3/4 inches is the amount of space that we have between the scissor jack and the lens. Now even with the air assist, the new air assist lens that we're going to put on, it's still going to be the same distance, because the only reason why it's going to look shorter is because there's a funnel to funnel the air out, but the lens will still be in the same position. So we're right at about 2 3/4 inches. With a 2-inch focus, that gives us about 3/4 of an inch of workspace. If you need more than that, if you need the full inch, then don't buy the 8-inch scissor jack, buy the 4-inch one. That one sits lower. Now with the 8-inch scissor jack, you need to remove the rubber feet, take the screws out, remove the rubber feet, and remove the bottom plate to get this much clearance. Yeah, it's a pain in the butt, but it's worth it because the 8-inch is much more stable than the 4-inch one is. So that's why I use the 8-inch scissor jack. So here is the new air assist nozzle. You can see what I was talking about when I said that the cone is lower, much lower than on the old one, on the old laser head. But it doesn't matter because the distance to the focal lens is what we're measuring here. And we're not necessarily measuring the distance to the bottom of the lens anymore. So before I took this old laser head off, what I did was I found the center of this opening where the laser beam enters, and I marked it on the plate right here. Now that tells me that I know exactly how to line up the new one and make sure that the new one is dead center of that dot that I have on the plate there, and there won't be any need to do any mirror adjusting. And here you can see that I've already run the air assist line through here. I'll put a link to this particular tubing down below in the show more section of the video, but this is quite hard to do. You have to pull out this little cable holder right here so that you have enough room. And then my son is an electrician, so he had some wetter wire or something like that, like a spray lubricant. You can use probably anything, any type of lubricant to lubricate this hose and slide it through. And just pull these wires off to the side, start sliding it. I was shocked to find out that my first push went all the way up to here. It just kept going all the way up to here. And then what I did was I moved the laser head all the way to the left, and I pushed it further in, and then I brought it all the way back to the middle, and that wrapped it up around the top here. You don't want to have to push around this curve right here. Then from here it was a matter of pushing down on the tubing and pushing in over here until I got it all the way through to the end, and there's the excess hanging out ready to be plugged onto the new air assist nozzle. Now to remove this one, you want to get a good bite on the bottom of the laser head and turn this top one by hand. It should turn right off for you with a good forceful turn. And just unscrew the entire laser head into two pieces. Once you've done that, you want to unscrew this screw right here. Take this mirror out, be very careful with it. Install this one on the same spot on the new laser head. Over here is where the lens is. So you have two parts here. You have the part that attaches to the laser nozzle right here. That has to be very tight. Then you have this part down here where you unscrew the lens, and that doesn't have to be tight at all. So here I'm just giving you an example of how the lens gets installed. There is a spacer that you put in so that this lens can fit into this air assist nozzle. And now I'm not cleaning the lens here, I've already cleaned it. What I'm doing is I'm feeling for where the bottom of the lens is. The flat side of the lens will have a sharp edge to it, and you'll know flat side goes down, convex side goes up, and that's why I was rubbing it with the microfiber cloth. And that's how it gets installed into the laser head right there. Then all you do is you simply take the retainer and screw it on. Now actually I'm doing this for demonstration purposes. We're going to screw the retainer onto the laser head first so that we can make it good and tight, and then we screw on the actual bottom part like you see here. And here is how I lined this one up. Like I said earlier, dead center of the hole, right up with my mark right there. And then I went ahead and put this piece on the bottom and tighten this up real tight. Now this one you want to be real tight. you haven't put your lens on yet. You're just putting on the bottom part here. Now the next thing that we're going to do, now that we've got it all on and tight, is we're going to install the very bottom part of the laser nozzle. That just slips right over the bottom, and then all you do is get a screwdriver and you tighten up the little grub screw right here on the front. You adjust it to whatever angle that you need, and then you just go ahead and tighten this up, and it's all set. So one thing I didn't mention, I did go ahead and install this air diverter back in the machine upside down. Don't ask me why. I installed them all upside down. They seem to work better that way from the back. So here's the back view. The 4 screws go in the back side. This I put in upside down. I really don't know why, but it seems to work better that way. Seems to channel the smoke better. Maybe it's all in my imagination. I don't know. But this is the way that I did it. And while I was in here, I also went on Amazon and I picked up some LEDs in Fahrenheit. The ones that came with this machine were really garbage, and sometimes they worked and sometimes they didn't. So I picked up, I think, like 10 of these for a couple of dollars on Amazon. I'll put the link down below. I much rather have the reading in Fahrenheit than Celsius. I think they should change these LEDs out to Fahrenheit anyway. And here is the final project. Now on this, you're going to see you need to route this down the side the same way that the wires are routed, and you see why as I move this. Because if I move it all the way to the back, it doesn't kink. Moving it all the way to the front, it also doesn't kink. And this is the way you want to have it. You don't want to run it around the back side like you see everybody else doing it on YouTube, because that's going to do nothing but cause you trouble. So make sure you route this the same way that the wires are routed, so that you don't wind up getting a kink line, or it will actually throw off your engravings if the line does kink, even if it corrects itself. So you just want to route it through the same place that the wires are routed. All right, so first cut. I'm checking the focus right now, and right there is where you focus it to, right underneath the lip where the I lost my words, lens is. Okay, there we go, where the lens is. So I'm going to show you a picture of that in a minute. Now here, well, you know what, I didn't set my settings right. I set this way too hot. But yeah, air assist is working fine. No flare-ups whatsoever. The air extraction is working great. All of this looks great. This is 4mm plywood, and it, you know, it just did it like it's supposed to. And with my big hands in the way, you couldn't see it, so I wanted to get a close-up picture. This lip right here is where you're going to use your focus gauge from the factory, and you're going to go from the lip down to the actual workpiece itself. And as you can see, I have plenty of space in between here for different size wood. Right now I have this focus to 4mm wood. The engraving that I did a smoke engraving so that you could see the smoke extraction. That was, I don't know, 6mm bamboo, I think, something like that. But there's plenty of room for a 3/4 inch piece of wood here. And I've got the bed raised up right now, so quite a few turns to get to this focal point. So working great. You saw the cut. It wasn't a tiniest bit of fire that came up. The air assist was working perfectly. Yeah, I had the cut way too hot, but you know, that's just me. I didn't get my settings right. I could have gone much faster and gotten a cleaner cut. But everything's working great. The fume extraction is working superb now. And let me give you an example of that. I'm going to show you right now. All right, so here we go with, I think this is 6mm bamboo from Dollar General. Pretty sure it is. Doesn't really matter what it is. the idea here is to make as much smoke as possible. So I set this on like 60% power, and I don't know what, maybe 20 speed, something like that. I wanted to make a whole bunch of smoke so that you can see the smoke extraction working now. And before I used to get, of course I've never done anything this deep, this type of deep engraving. This engraving is probably, I don't know, about 3 or 4 millimeters deep into the wood. I wanted it to smoke on purpose, but you can see that that smoke extraction is pulling everything out. And I don't have the air assist on now, so I kept it off. Well, you don't use air assist on engravings, but I just had it on just a tiny little bit, only enough to keep the smoke off of the lens itself. But you can see how well that smoke extraction is working right there. And I've never had it work this good before. So I mean, if I had the lid closed, everything would be you know, much better than even this. All right, so that's it. That's the whole video. So now I want to give you my thoughts on this process, some of the stumbling blocks that I ran into along the way, as well as some things that you might run into. So first off, the getting that air assist line through the drag chain can be a challenge. It probably took me 5 or 6 minutes just to do that one job. And you're going to need the lubricant. I'm going to put a link down below to the tubing that I used. You have to use a hard tubing. You can't use any of these tubings that come with the diode lasers or that come with the air assist, because they'll just bend. You won't be able to get them through the drag chain. Now, what some people are doing is they're actually taking that air assist line and putting it on the outside of the drag chain with a couple zip ties, you know, maybe every 2 inches or so, all the way around the drag chain to the laser nozzle. But I don't particularly like that myself. I'd rather have it inside the drag chain, out of the way, nice and neat. You know, I mean, you want it to look professional. Another problem that I had is that that particular tubing that I use doesn't fit the standard nozzle, so I did have to take a heat gun and heat it up a little bit to get it over the air pump nozzle, which is kind of strange because I guess it's different than the splitter that I use for my air compressor, because that tubing fit perfectly over that splitter. But either way, makes no difference. I made it work. Just heat it up a little bit with a heat gun or maybe a cigarette lighter or something like that, and just, you know, push it on. Once you've got it on, it's fine. I do want to say that the air assist made a huge difference in the cutting. If you go back and look at my letter to Santa video, you'll see the cut that I did, the couple of cuts that I did in that video. The flame was right there up by the lens. You know, a big huge flame was coming up during the cut. And with the air assist, that's virtually eliminated. Completely, really, it's completely eliminated. So there is no flame up anymore. You get a nice clean cut. You don't get any burnt edges or anything like that. So that is a big plus when it comes to the air assist. Removing that fan is very important. And if you're doing an inline fan, if you're not, just, you know, leave the fan in there. But most people are going to do an inline fan because they want to get better smoke extraction. And if you don't remove that fan, you're not going to get better smoke extraction, because that fan is going to be in the way. You have to spin that fan up faster than it's supposed to go. You're going to burn that fan out. Not that it really matters, because you're not using it anymore. You're using an inline fan instead. But still, better to take it out, because it's an air restriction. You're really not doing any good by adding an inline fan when you have that other fan that's still in the machine, because it's just going to bog down the suction. It's not going to be any better. So there you have it. I'm going to put links down below to everything that I talk about in this video, where you can go check them out on Amazon or just research them. Go to Amazon, get the part numbers, find them on your own, whatever you want to do. I'll have all those links down below where you can do this yourself as well. So I think the only part that I missed in the video was when I screwed the lens on. I didn't take a shot of doing that, but I missed that part in the video. But I did show you how to put the lens in with the spacer. You just screw it on. It's very simple, but don't screw it on too tight because you want to be able to remove it by hand for cleaning. So that's about it. What'd you think of the video? I hope you enjoyed it. I had a good time making it. I've been dying to upgrade this K40 since the day that I got it, but I wanted to make a couple of videos with it first. So I hope you enjoyed today's video as much as I enjoyed making it for you. And as always, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.